back to My Hometown Cooking, a show all about feel-good food with community roots. And today's meal is all about speed to getting a meal onto your dinner table. And it's June, people are having graduations, people are graduating from kindergarten and going to first grade. Some kids are graduating from high school or college. And whether you're running to a soccer practice or you literally just have such a limited amount of time at night, this is all meant to be very quick, but also still wholesome. And also starting to highlight, I don't know about you guys, but I'm starting to see some of the summer vegetables coming in. They're not local yet, but there's corn, there's asparagus, so it's also trying to incorporate some of that into the meal. So what we're gonna be doing today is a pork tenderloin roast with roasted potatoes and asparagus. And what's really gonna make this fast is how you cook it. And I've never heard of this before until I tried it a couple of years ago, and I was so skeptical. But the way you're gonna make this is basically putting your pork tenderloin and your potatoes into a 500-degree oven. Super hot, yeah, super, super hot. But you're only gonna do it for a very short period of time. Then you're gonna shut your oven off and don't open it. That's the key. Do not open your oven for an hour. You just let the pork and the potatoes sit in your oven for an hour. They literally come out moist, tender, and the potatoes are nice and golden brown. And within an hour, you have a meal. So you can shut your oven off, run, pick up your kids from soccer, come back, and you have a meal ready for your family. And to top it all off, everything that I have here is basically for 2 people, $15. So about $5 for the pork, $5 for potatoes, and depending on the sale of the asparagus, it could be basically $3. So under $15, you have a meal for 2. So let's get started. The first thing I did is I bought these baby potatoes. You can buy them in a bag or sometimes they're loose. I really love these. These are red potatoes, but you can use Yukon Gold or whatever the small potatoes are. And I'm just gonna cut them in quarters and throw them into a bowl. All of my veggies have been washed and ready to go. So step 1, potatoes in the bowl. I've tried this both ways of either pre-cooking my potatoes in the microwave or not. I actually prefer to do that, which I've already done with the other potatoes here. My microwave at home is super duper hot, and I'm really not sure why. I think it's just a higher wattage. So I usually turn my power down, but literally just put these potatoes in a microwave safe bowl with a little lid. I have this lid that I put on the top, not secured down, but just loosely in your microwave for about 4 minutes, and then take them out. So these have already had that happen. And then the next thing I'm gonna do is just drizzle with a little olive oil. Okay, maybe a lot. Oops. And then I do not measure my salt and pepper. I basically just work to cover the top. Because remember, you got 2 kids that need to be driven somewhere, or somebody's outside yelling, and you're really just trying to get this in the oven so you can get going. A little salt, and then I just toss that up. Really nice and coat all of that. So there's step 1. My potatoes are ready to be put on my sheet pan, and I'm gonna leave that there until it's ready to go in the oven. The next step is I'm gonna get my asparagus on the stove. I'm not gonna turn it on until probably 15-20 minutes when the pork is ready to come out, but I'll have it on the stove ready to go. And for our demo purposes here, I am gonna start it. So this asparagus, you know, it comes in a bunch. I always trim off the ends of the asparagus. Sometimes the ends of certain asparagus are more fibrous than other asparagus, so you just want to make sure you feel near the bottom and that you got all the more fibrous ends of the asparagus off. These have also been washed. I have my steamer basket on the stove. I actually already have my water going a little bit, so I'm going to throw my asparagus into my steamer pan. And like I said, when you're actually making this at home, you would just have this set aside on your stove until your pork is pretty much out of the oven. But because I already have a pork cooked, because I'm not going to make all these beautiful people sit here for an hour and a half for my pork to be done. So the next step is the pork. So let me get that out of the fridge. And I'm actually a vegetarian, so I make this at home for my husband because he's a meat and potatoes kind of guy, and obviously I'm not a meat and potatoes kind of girl. So what I would typically do is have an extra vegetable side and the potatoes so that we can eat together, but he still gets his meat and potatoes and I don't have to put in a ton of extra work. So this pork tenderloin, I'm going to leave it in the bag here, but I already did trim off. Sometimes when you buy a piece of pork tenderloin, this is about 1.5 pounds. There will be almost like a silver skin that's over the meat. I did take the time to trim that off. So it's very lean. It's a great alternative to chicken if you're starting to get a little tired of chicken. So I'm just going to pour a little olive oil into my bag here. And this time, again, I'm a little in a rush, so I just purchased a pre-made rub for my pork tenderloin. This is actually an applewood rub. I think that applewood flavoring goes really well. There's a little molasses, there's a little sugar, there's some great spices, so it's really going to help enhance that pork. I'm just going to pour that right over the top. And again, I'd say it's probably about 1 tablespoon to 2 tablespoons. It's up to your preference how much seasoning you want on that. And then I'm just going to massage that into the top of the pork tenderloin. Make sure it's nice and coated. And here we go. You can either use a sheet pan. I'm using this pan because I have it. It's just a baking dish with a rack inside that I've covered with aluminum foil. I'm just going to take my pork tenderloin out. Place that right on the rack, ready for the oven. And then I'm going to get my oven going. I'm going to go wash my hands real quick. Yay! Let me get that, because anytime you're using raw meat products, you just want to really make sure that your cutting boards and your hands are nice and clean. I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to get my oven started, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I put my oven on 500 degrees. That's super important to this recipe. So 500 degrees, let it properly preheat. So my oven's up to temperature at 500. I have my nice baking sheet here. I'm just going to pour my potatoes onto my baking sheet. And just make sure that's all nice and spread out evenly on the pan. Sometimes I like to turn these little spuds over because I like that brown caramelized flavor that you can get. Also, depending on the age of the potatoes, sometimes they brown up really well and sometimes they don't, depending on the starch in the potatoes and where it's at in its maturity. So I'll get that in here. And this is where this is so easy. So I am literally just going to put my pork on one rack in my oven, my potatoes on another, and you're going to want to cook it for 5 minutes per pound. So this is about 1.5 pounds, so I'm going to do it for about 8 minutes in the oven at 500. So let me get that in there right now. Put that in first, just so I don't lose my heat. Keep that oven nice and shut. Get my potatoes in there. So set your timer to 8 minutes. Start timer. And that is it. So 8 minutes, let that pork and the potatoes cook in that 500-degree oven. When the timer goes off, turn your oven off. Leave it in there. Set your timer for an hour. And then in an hour, take your pork out. You want to have that pork at 145. That's the standard internal cooking temperature for pork. It used to be a lot higher, but they did a review of the internal cooking temperature for pork, and they set it similar to other beef and other meat items. So 145 is the safe temperature. It will be a little pink in the middle. And by the magic of television, I've already done that this morning. So let's get right into the pork. Let me get my cutting board. So we got our potatoes. We're just gonna slice this up. We have our asparagus started and ready to go with the pork. And we're just gonna slice this up. It's perfect. It's still a little pink in the middle, but it's moist and tender. And the best part about these potatoes is I love home fries. So any potatoes you don't eat that night, you just throw them in the oven or your toaster oven and warm them up in the morning, and you'll be good to have some leftovers. So we're back and we're joined by some beautiful guests here that live right here at the Whitney Place in Northborough. We have Mary and Jerry. Mary's been featured here before. She's now quite a celebrity around here. And Jerry is now being added to the list of, do we have an agent yet, Jerry?
Not yet.
Not yet, but it's coming, which I'm super excited about. So we have a little tasting for Mary and Jerry. So if you two would like, here's a little plate.
Thank you.
We have our pork. I added a little lemon. You don't need to have the lemon, but I love a little lemon on my asparagus or my potatoes. It just adds that little citrus and acid to that. So I'll let them, you guys are welcome to try the pork or the potatoes. I'm hoping it's nice and tender. Have we tried it?
I have it pork now.
How we doing?
Very nice, moist.
Yes.
Very nice, yes.
Excellent.
It's a pretty plate as well.
Well, that's what I was shooting for, Mary.
Yes, that's right.
It's all about how good we look, right?
We eat with our eyes.
We do. You're absolutely right. Actually, we do.
Delicious.
You're going in for the lemon, Jerry. I'm loving it. You like that lemon. There you go. That potato's going to be good with that lemon on it. Perfect. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me here today and for trying the food. Because the good part is this has been resting a little bit because I cooked it actually before I came to the show today. So the fact that it still holds its tender and moisture is great. Because sometimes pork can get really dried out, and that's why a lot of people kind of shy away from it. But I so appreciate you two joining me here today and for trying the food. I really appreciate it.
Fine.
Good. Well, I'll have you back. I know where you live. Thank you guys all for joining us again for another episode. You can get this recipe and all the recipes on myhometowncooking.com, and we really hope you join us again. So thank you so much.